Start the recording. This is the first time we've done this webinar, so bear with us. Skipping ahead, we're in the process of putting together some design guidelines that we'll have available in the near future. Um, we really started this company to work with people like you. Quick background, growing up as a kid, I wanted to be an architect. I had books Frank Lloyd Wright as a 5-year-old and Legos and blocks and thought I was going to become an architect. First thing I ever told my mom I wanted to be. I got to college, did a design program one summer and learned that I had neither the talent nor temperament, but learned about developers and from that realized that there were people who were in a position to help facilitate great design, which I, as I shared, respected from a young age. And Years after a career in technology and some nonprofit work, um, decided to start a company that would help facilitate great design. So I started a company in 2006 called Living Homes. We partner with great architects, people like Ray Cappy. This is one of the last homes that we worked on with Ray Cappy. We built 10 homes with him. Kieran Timberlake, number of other great architects. We used outsource factory production for the homes we built back at Living Homes. In our first 10 years, we worked with 10 different factories. It was very difficult working with them. They weren't, in fairness, set up to do the kinds of projects we were doing, which were, very high quality, great architecture, LEED platinum level environmental programs. They were, many of the companies did mobile homes. So, but we started the company beginning of the worst real estate downturn since the Great Depression. So we just, step one was to remain in business. Post downturn, we got really busy and they got really busy, and we were like, there needs to be a new kind of company with a factory or factories set up to work with architects to do great architecture. And we spun out Plant Prefab in 2016. We opened with one facility, it got full. We opened a second, it got full. And then we um, uh, built our first ground up facility in Arvin, California, which is about an hour and change north of California. You'll hear about it and see it shortly, but it's the only in the nation purpose-built to do both panels and mods. And with that, we were really in a position to do some great things, be able to build homes like this way more efficiently than a traditional process, or frankly, even than certainly most other prefabricators are capable of doing. So, with that background, what I want to do tonight is uh, do a quick introduction to us, a few thoughts about design guidelines, but mostly take your questions, and we'll leave a lot of time for that. I want to mention I've got two colleagues on the line, Matt Langton, who actually started as an architecture intern like 11 years ago at Living Homes and now runs project management for us, and he'll probably mostly take your questions because he's the person with whom you work we've got a project together. And then Seth Whitlock, who works in business development. So we're, as I said, really excited to speak to you tonight. And let me give you just a quick overview on what we do, and then we'll get to questions. So we, as I mentioned, we have the only factory in the country purpose-built to do both panels and modules. Um, Panels are like a part of a structure, right? A wall panel, ceiling panel, floor panel. Um, Modules, they're volumetric. For us, they're comprised of panels, and both systems, and we can do lots of different types of panels. Um, uh, we don't tend to do just framing, but we typically are giving you your weather wrap, windows, door framing. We can even talk about MEP. But what each system has certain advantages and disadvantages, and we do both because again, our focus is to be able to look at your design and figure out the most efficient way to build it. So modules are great because you can build in parallel to the site work, so you typically can save a lot of time that way. We have an automated facility. It's all weather, so we're able to dramatically compress production schedules. A 3,000 square foot home that's modular on average takes maybe 3 months in the factory, again, in parallel with the site work. For panels, it can be a week or two. Um, uh, but the downside of modules, they can be expensive to ship and install. And because of the redundant structure and some of the design or some of the limitations of transport, you have to think carefully about your design and how it's laid out. Panels don't have the redundant structure. And by the way, the redundant structure is more an issue for multifamily. Sometimes you have to reduce unit count or number of units because of it. Um, but regardless, oftentimes because of the issues with dimensions, it can affect how you think about space, both internally and a floor plan and elevation. Panels don't have the redundancy of material issue, so you can solve design problems more elegantly. They ship flat, super efficient to ship. Oh, by the way, for a panel project, we can use designs that have been designed and engineered for a traditional site-based process. For modules, it has to be designed and engineered for modules. So um, panels often are the only solution based on where you may be in the design process, or maybe your site doesn't allow the transport and installation of modules. So again, they both have certain advantages and challenges. We do both. Some projects are all panels, some projects are all modules. Oftentimes, particularly for single family, it's a hybrid. So, what are some of the advantages? Well, I alluded to one already, massive compression of schedules. So we have a project that we did in a duplex, 3,000 square feet in Venice. It was installed in March, end of March, actually, and they're expecting the C of O any minute. So that's a 7 month plus process from start of construction to C of O. That's much faster than a traditional process in sort of the west side of Los Angeles. Um, uh, can be reduced cost. It's not always the case. It really depends on what we're doing where. We've got um, a developer. We did a number of homes for this development in Lake Tahoe, and the developer who had built homes in the exact same area, actually on the same project, a site-based approach, estimates we saved him about 20% from what it would have cost with a traditional process. But like I said, sometimes it's not always savings on a per square foot basis, but that's not really fair. I mean, understand that everybody looks that way, but it's really project cost. And if we save you 50% of the time, 30%, you're saving money. Carrying costs for your construction loan or equity if it's a developer, or rent if you're individual rebuild, in particular for living some other site before you can move in. So really, the right metric is total project cost. Reliability, as you know, in a traditional process, you often get hit with change orders, schedule delays, sometimes because of weather. Certainly, last few days, I'm sure there was a number of construction sites where no work was happening. We do a manufacturing model, which you'll see. We clarify RFIs at that issue at that point. I did a webinar with Matt um, a few weeks ago, and I asked him, since he's on the front lines of this, when was the last time we issued a non-client based change order? And he said we did one last year. So just kind of an illustration of the fact that we're just much more reliable in terms of budget and then schedules. I think Indiana shipped a day late. Um, so that's a significant advantage. Also with us, we're pretty careful about the materials we source. I should mention we are Benefit Corp and B Corp certified. We take sustainability pretty seriously. I alluded to this earlier. This was the project in Lake Tahoe in terms of cost reduction and schedule reduction. We did an affordable housing project in Santa Monica with Brooks Scarpa, and the client there, who is the GC, estimates we saved about a third of the time by going through this process. Alluded to, we do, as I said, take sustainability pretty seriously. We've done more LEED, platinum, and gold certified. In fact, that than almost any other factory in the country. The multifamily project we did with Brooks Scarpa, we expect to get gold certified. So that's 13 units. I'm going to uh, show you, actually, let me first show you some pictures of projects we've completed, and then we'll just do a quick video of our factory, give you a tour of the facility. We are very busy with fire rebuild projects. We have the only high capacity automated prefab facility west of the Mississippi that does single family homes. We're one of only two automated high capacity prefab facilities in California. The other one only does multifamily. We specialize in customized architectural projects. Um, you're going to see a number of projects in design with other architects. Here's the one of 32 homes we did in Lake Tahoe, that project I mentioned earlier. Um, the Ray Cappy in Malibu, that's the interior. And you'll see we by the way, we are wood frame, but we have a steel shop. You'll notice some moment frames and steel staircases. We do that when it's part of it, part of the design project we did in Palo Alto with Toby Long. There's one of those moment frames and steel structural elements to which I alluded. Um, these are a couple homes we did at Martis Camp with Toby Long. That's also by Lake Tahoe. And as you'll see, we have a lot of experience doing high snow load kinds of projects. Is a townhome project in Los Altos with Metro Design Group. Um, this is a multifamily project we did with Loha. Um, Panels on the first floor, modules on the second and third floor. Um, by the way, when we ship modules, it's with all finished plumbing and electrical, all millwork, uh, tiles installed and grouted. So this is how this shipped. Appliances installed, tested at the factory too. This is the rendering of that affordable housing project with Brooks Scarpa. This should be done, by the way, C of O in January. And I just want to show you some of the rebuild projects first from Scott Prentice. And then you'll see some homes we're doing with bespoke design. And then with Toby Long. So we'll like I said, have some design guidelines, and you'll get more about this then. But few thoughts. One big difference in working with prefab than a traditional process, you really need to think through a lot of your design details upfront. In fact, as you'll hear, we take your architecturals typically halfway through CDs, and we do a manufacturing model. You're going to see an example of that. We do that because ultimately we need from that model the shop drawings, but embedded in it is the machine code that tells our automated equipment what to do. And you'll see that. But the other reason we do it is to clarify any coordination issues. We're issuing RFIs at that point. And so we're working with you to clarify all this up front. Traditional process, you have more time, frankly, to work on this. So we everything gets front loaded, but then things move much quicker as a result. So your CD set really needs to be a very complete CD set, more so than some of the architects that we've worked with are used to. And implied in this is a super high level of coordination, which really needs to be complete before we hit the factory floor. Um, some how we work with you. If it's going to be a modular project, we want to work very early at the SD stage. We're happy to review any drawings you have. And by the way, I listed my contact info. Seth, if you can enter your contact info too. We are happy to look at any schematic you have for any project and let you know if we think it's feasible to do modular prefab panels. Honestly, we don't even have to look at, like, we could look at CDs and give you a bid for that, or really more your GC. Um, because we can do panels for almost any project. Modules, as I said, that has more limitations. So if you're thinking about modular, just want some sense of what you might be able to do, feel free to send us CDs, and we're happy to take a look at that and even give you some preliminary estimates of cost. But assuming we're working together on a more formal basis, so you've made a decision, all right, this is going to be a modular project. We have a pre-construction agreement, and we're doing a few things with it. We're consulting during the design process. We're talking about the ways that we might do this with some combination of panels or mods. Again, it might be all panels, it might be all mods, might be a hybrid. We're giving you greater levels of estimates as the scope becomes clear as you go through engineering. And then eventually in the last phase, we're doing that engineering model that I mentioned. Um, uh, just some thoughts about design issues we often face. On the modular side, we have to be very careful about dimensions. Uh, Typically, we advise, under 15 feet. You can do greater than 15. In fact, we did a home in Telluride where we shipped 17.5-foot modules, and modules that were 17 feet tall, which we, again, advise people never to do, but it's very expensive to build in Telluride. It was a very high-end home. And so it was economic to do it, but in general, budgets are not as generous. And so we advise, keeping modules to less than 15 feet and no greater than 12 feet high. We can talk more about that. 40, 50 feet long, can be longer, but just to contain costs. So these are, and we're often thinking about how your millwork or plumbing might cross mod lines or how it might stack. And we can talk more about that specifically in the Q&A. I should mention we do weekly tours, but I want to show you give you a quick video tour of the factory, just because I think it'll be helpful for um, you understanding what we do and how, and then we'll get to Q&A. So as I mentioned, we're in Arvin, California, so it's right over the Grapevine, right off the 5. 270,000 square foot facility. So we can do, depending upon the mix of mods and panels, maybe 3 million square feet a year. So again, depending upon size of homes, 1,000, 2,000 homes a year. Um, we're going to go through this like we go through on our tours, and they're weekly tours. And email us. Happy to set you up on a tour. But every project starts here. I mentioned about the machine model. This is a 60 unit affordable housing project in Koreatown. And if you come visit us, you'll actually see the first unit, which we completed. So as I said, we fully coordinate your structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, your sprinklers, clarifying RFIs, then getting absolutely precise bombs, and getting the machine code that drives our equipment. And you're going to see monitors at kind of each piece of equipment. You'll see, like in a second, you'll see the piece that's going through the equipment right now, and that's from that machine model. So this is where we cut every piece of lumber we use, every stud joist, rim joist, and it not only cuts, it does any kind of complex cuts we need to do at dados, at uh, notches. It routes, so no plumber or electrician is measuring for piping or electrical. It's all done in that equipment. Every piece of lumber is labeled. We know the project. We know where on the project. We have three automated panel lines. This is the line for wall panels. We have roof and seal in floor too. So you just saw a piece of equipment that automatically nails the studs and joists together. This then nails your OSB, your weather wrap, can even do drywall to the frames, cuts out openings for windows and doors, trims off any excess. This piece of equipment blows in insulation. And then we have panel bays. And by the way, one of the great advantages, our panels are absolutely level, straight, square, flush, with tolerances that are way below what you would find in a traditional process. In fact, when drywallers go to do their work, like they're just blown away that there's like nothing, almost no leveling, no corrections they need to make because it's absolutely level. Um, on the panel line, you saw earlier in installation of windows, we have three module lines with 7 stations each. So here's where we finish that drywall, put in millwork, put in tiles, grout, appliances, flooring, inspections are done there. We literally deliver with the modules inspection certificates. The local municipality has no authority to look behind the walls if we get questions about permitting. We can talk about that. We sell our components to GCs or developers, not to individuals. So in that sense, we're like a master sub. This is that LOHA project we did. So again, the first floor was um, uh, panels and on slab on grade, and the second and third floor were modules. Um, I know I'll get questions about cost, so I'll just mention this. The single family homes that we bid or built in the last year have ranged from 225 to 500 a square foot. That's our cost to the client. If you're wondering, well, what's total hard cost? So site work, transport, install, landscape, like what are the hard cost budgets? A good rule of thumb is double our budget, so 450 to 1,000 a square foot. Um, Multifamily, we bid or built in the last year, 125 to 300. Again, double that to get what are all-in hard costs. So with that, um, love to get any of your questions. I'm going to make sure everybody can speak. I probably missed lots of stuff. Matt, if there's anything you want to add or correct, feel free. But look forward to your questions. Andrew?
Yeah. So how does it work with Windows? Like, can we use any window we want, or we have Windows shipped to you and then you install them?
Yeah, no,
Um,
sorry, I should have said this. Sorry, Matt, just because we build to your spec, full stop.
okay.
We will always look at your spec and say, hey, you spec this, you spec, Milgard, but or probably the other way around. You spec Anderson, we can get you better pricing on Milgard, but it's totally up to you.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just wasn't
But
really sure if you guys had your own
it
Windows
is
or how that
it
worked.
is it is your spec.
Okay, good
But
to know.
we buy everything. We don't
Okay, so
keep
you
the extra
purchase
product. Absolutely, because
what we spec.
we have to coordinate in the factory and own it and own
Got it.
warranty. And so, yeah.
Got it.
There are
Okay. So
there are
similar question
certain
with insulation.
manufacturers that we prefer and certain manufacturers that we don't prefer, and a lot of that has to do with the site location also.
Got it. Okay. So similar question with insulation. Um, do you guys always it looked like that was maybe cellulose, blown in cellulose insulation? Do you guys always use that, or are we able to specify that?
When we most often just use conventional bat and spray foam as necessary.
Okay. Are you able to use other kinds of insulation if we want?
Like what?
Particularly thinking about insulation from the exterior?
We can do like a zip R product. We've done that on a
Uh-huh.
number of projects. We don't typically do any like rigid at the roof. That's normally done on site.
Okay.
But we don't normally install standalone rigid at the exterior just for shipping purposes.
But that would be able to be installed on site then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
Oh,
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I should mention that we can do cladding, and we often have, but generally for projects, particularly if you want just a continuous, no seam, that's done on site, as is the final roofing. Although we're going to ship it with weatherproofing, uh, which
Okay.
which gets taped.
And so then how far out in the system of layers do you typically get?
90% of our projects we end at the sheathing. And the sheathing product that we use is a zip system, so it includes the WRP.
Got it.
But we
Okay.
can use Tyvek if that's part of the spec. But we'll try to talk you into zip.
Okay. Okay, great.
Christopher?
Most of those questions were already answered. So thank you, previous gentlemen, for the questions.
Awesome.
But I am more curious about materials. If you do any other work with mass timber, like larger timber beams, if it's requested, custom components.
Timber beams, absolutely. If we don't typically do the entire shell in mass timber, and we haven't done any CLT projects because they've been more expensive and never penciled.
Mhm.
But we
But you
do
would have the capability of CLT slab if.
Probably, but it's not something that we're looking at right now.
Mhm. Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, I've played around with modular for mostly focus on sort of multifamily, small infill type projects, going back to I think 2016, and I've bent my pick a number of times. Um, I guess what I see is in the power in modular, especially volumetric, is sort of you guys generating a product that would fit sort of like say a infill multifamily type of project, like a fourplex type product. I mean, Henry Ford didn't start Ford by customizing cars for to achieve the necessary cost savings by customizing cars. He built a product and tried to make it as cheap as possible, and then people bought it or they didn't buy it. So I guess I'm curious if you have any interest in sort of trying to develop a product for the market where we're not bringing you specs, we're predominantly working off of your spec. And it's a fairly versatile product that can do a lot of different things. So maybe a fourplex that mirrors to an eightplex, that continuously mirrors to a 12 or 16, or maybe stacks 3 stories instead of two. So because that market is almost impossible in California to achieve, a product, a project, and that's economical and meets sort of working class or workforce type requirements, cost requirements. So
Yeah.
long question, but I guess what I'm keenly interested, are you working towards maybe a product, or does that put you too much in one segment of the market?
Yeah, we offer products. But let me start by saying we will always do custom projects. That was a founding premise behind the company. Most prefab companies um, offer a catalog of homes, and we specifically started the company because we don't believe products will ever supplant or disintermediate architects. We think because, frankly, can you see my screen? It's not.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
We think because of the lots sizes can vary in cities, neighborhood to neighborhood, in different zoning. There will always be a place for architects and the work they do. We want to make that more efficient. Having said that, we have worked with architects, which hopefully you're seeing now, Kodo out of the UK and Ray Cappy and others, to create some standardized plans, um, which we have done over the years, but they almost always get customized. We're gonna introduce, working with some of the architects that we're working with now, some projects, or I should say standardized homes designed for some of the Palisades lots and Altadena lots. So that is something we want to do, but we'll always do custom work too. And then, by the way, I'm showing you some of the projects that we're working on in affordable and multifamily or have done. This is all at our website. Um, we're working with developers who are sort of doing what you're saying, Joe. One in particular, we did 4 homes for him in El Segundo, and he's um, using SB 9 and 10, which allows you to essentially do small lot developments. Um, he's bought a number of them, and we sort of designed a product with him and his architect, and he's deploying it across a variety of sites. So developers are also kind of doing that themselves, creating products, and we're in a position to support both custom projects and products and projects that may start as products and go from there. John,
Yes, I was curious, have you ever embarked on a SIP or structurally insulated panel project?
Matt's smiling. Our panels, we've never just done a SIP per se, which is framing and insulation and OSB. Our panels almost always have windows. Sort of take what you just said, add windows, add weather barrier. That more often is the minimum, but I mean we're open. I'm not sure we're the most cost-effective pure SIP provider.
Right. And then another question I have is if you could please restate your maximum module dimensions.
There's no maximum.
Yeah.
No max, in terms
Nope.
of just traveling over land.
What do you want to pay?
The maximum, yeah, depends on the budget and physical accessibility.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
wider it is, the more expensive it
What
is.
would be the ideal for the for keeping it keeping it from becoming stratospheric?
Some sites you can't deliver anything over 8 feet wide. And
Really?
so,
Wow.
yeah, it's completely dependent on the site. If you have parking restrictions and narrow streets, that can be an issue. If you have overhanging tree branches, especially if it's an oak tree that we can't cut down or remove in any way, that can prevent a tall and wide module from getting to the site. So it's 100% site specific. As a general rule, we like to keep things under 12 feet
In width or height?
in width.
Okay, there we go.
Yep.
All right, and then height, you had stated that before as being under 15. Is that what I understood?
You actually want to keep the module height to under 13 feet almost
13.
everywhere. We
Okay.
have, as Steve said, we did a module once that was 17 feet and we delivered it out of state.
Right.
It was very expensive. It was a pain in the butt to get there. There was one route that worked, and if that route would have seen any construction during the install or prior to install, it could have shut down the installation by a year. So you don't want to go over 12 and a half, 13 feet tall in most cases. 12 feet in width is a good width that you can
Good.
generally deliver along any highway.
but we
Excellent.
we do 12 to 15 all the time too. But I should mention we are happy to take a look at sites and figure out feasibility for them.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Sure. Hey, got a question from Lance Collins. For multifamily projects, what are typical site-based components that you see? What is typical in the site contractor scope? Matt, you want to?
A contractor scope for multifamily, it's not much different than any other project we do. It depends on how complete the modules are, which oftentimes depends on the design, depends on the developer, and it depends on the GC.
But in general, for a modular project, more often than not, we're doing all finished plumbing and electrical, millwork, flooring, appliances installed, tiles grouted. So what's left is cladding, roof, utility hookups, mod to mod connections, mod to foundation connections, drywall between the mod lines inside, right? Uh, uh, leave out anything major, pendant lights.
Yeah, I mean, in general, it's the exterior finishing is left off at the factory, and anything that crosses a module where there's a connection between two components is left off by the factory because that has to be done on site.
Other questions? Awesome. Well, again, really appreciate you all joining. Happy to take a look at any plans. Both Seth and I gave our contact info in the chat. Reach out to us if you want to. I know I'm at the factory Thursday. Generally, Seth's there on Tuesdays, but happy to schedule a tour, show you what we're doing. Happy to take a look at any plans you have. And really appreciate your time. Thank you for attending tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.